The drop shot has a huge misconception that it is only a smallmouth spotted bass or a small fish catcher, and that's not true at all. The drop shot is a very versatile and effective tool that catches bass and big ones too. The drop shot works in all sorts of conditions: deep water, clear water, rocks, grass, you name it, the drop shot will work in it. But if you don't avoid these three major mistakes, you may not have success with the drop shot. The very first mistake is overcomplicating the equipment. It's real simple. We have a hook, we have a weight, and we have a soft plastic. And I'm going to show you the variations of these that I like. So there are two hook options that I like to use, and the first one is a 1/0 Nico hook from VMC. Pretty sharp hook, very high quality. But the reason I like this hook is it is very easy to nose hook this way. And when you nose hook a drop shot this way, it prevents line twist as it falls down through the water column. So if you're using a straight fluorocarbon or mono line, that's going to help there. And it is partially weedless. It's going to be weedless through some light vegetation and brush, but considering that there's a big old hook here that's still exposed, and it's not going to be that weedless. And if you're wondering if there's any issues with the hook popping through the plastic, well, no, not really, because there's the point. It's just underneath the very end. So the other hook that I like is the Guggen Baits drop-in finesse hook. I like this hook because you could rig it up just like a flipping bait, and you have this little bait keeper to keep it from sliding down. So when it's fully rigged up, here is going to be your drop shot. It's just going to look exactly like a flipping bait. So I'll use that option when I'm going to fish some heavy vegetation or heavier vegetation and brush piles. As far as weights go, I like to use these cylinder weights because they don't get wedged or hung up in anything like a teardrop weight might. And as far as weight sizes I like to use, anything less than 10 foot, I'll use a 1/4 ounce like this one. From 10 to 20 foot, I'll use a 3/8 ounce. And anything deeper than 20 foot, I'm going to be using a 1/2 ounce. And there's 4 colors of base that I like to use. One is going to be a shad-based color. The other is a simple green pumpkin. And the other 2 are a variation of purple, so some kind of purple color. These 2 here, I have a tequila sunrise here, and then a margarita red. So keeping it simple, I typically just use one of my standard rods. This one is a medium power with a fast action tip. But if I had a moderate to moderate fast action tip, that would work just fine too. Something around 7 foot, you want to be able to have some leverage against these fish. It's obviously a spinning rod. In all my rods, I use about 20-pound braid as the main line. And then I use 8 to 10-pound fluorocarbon or mono as my leader. And if you're just starting out with a drop shot, just start off with one of the variations that I showed you guys earlier. Pick up a set and start working with that. Keep it simple until you figure out drop shotting. The next mistake is thinking that your leader length isn't a very big deal. If you don't match what the fish are doing with your leader, you're going to be missing out on a lot of fish. You don't want to set this to 12 or 18 inches and fish it that way year round. If the fish are right on the bottom, you're going to want a 5 or 6 inch leader. If they're 2 to 3 foot off the bottom, you're going to want a 2 to 3 foot leader. And an example of that is in late summer, these fish like to move up off the bottom, so you're going to want a longer leader. My best advice on this is to experiment with it, and if you're fishing with a buddy, try 2 different leader lengths. If you're at 18 inches, put him down at 6. So the third mistake here is putting too much action on your drop shot. I see a ton of bass anglers doing this, just sitting there, just jiggling their line, just trying to force that bite to happen. Remember, this is a finesse technique, and keep it finesse. You would be surprised at how much action you put on the bait just by holding the rod still. The little motions in the water make these things go crazy. So there are 3 methods that I like to do to keep this bait finessey, and the first one is just keeping it still. Just keep a tight line and watching my line for those bites. The next way is just a simple and very slow drag. Keeping it very slow makes it finessey. And the last one here is just simply drop it next to the boat and vertical jig it. This works if you're in greater than about 10 foot of water. You can vertical jig these fish up right out of brush piles. I do absolutely love fishing a finesse technique like the drop shot, but nothing beats frog fishing. And you don't want to be fishing your frog the wrong way. But until next time, see you later, fishing fam.